Well, what a few weeks it's been for Lincoln City. The Imps have made history in the FA Cup and are top of the National League. We'll talk about that and much more here on the Link Sports Show. Good evening, I'm Elliot Hawkins, and joining me in the studio today are Link Sport reporters Daniel Kahn and Patrick Goldsborough. The treble is still on for Lincoln City. It's been a busy week for the Imps and there's a lot to discuss, but let's start with the FA Cup. City will travel to Premier League side Burnley in the 5th round of the competition after knocking out Championship leaders Brighton at Sincilbank on Saturday. So guys, let's start with your thoughts on the draw. You were both at Sincilbank for the draw. They've got a Premier League side, but it's away against Burnley, and that's not an easy game.
No, I think actually everyone cheered, didn't they, when at Sincilbank when they got Burnley. They were second out of the hat. They were absolutely buzzing to get a Premier League side. I think actually, you know, a lot of Lincoln City fans were quite upset with the fact that Sutton got Arsenal at home. I think if Sutton got any other team or any other team that wasn't a big Premier League side, they would have, well, they do appreciate that they have a Premier League side, but I do think they have that feeling of, you know, they just feel like they deserved a big team like Sutton, didn't they?
I think they wouldn't have really mattered, minded, if it would have been a home draw. I think that's what Lincoln fans were saying to us, really, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah.
About maybe not getting a home tie and maybe the amount of tickets that they'll get and stuff like that. But you really do want a Premier League team, and you know, Burnley. Just have to see how it goes.
I mean, Patrick brings up a good point because Turf Moor is quite a small ground, so usually sides only get around 4,000. I've heard that Lincoln City have asked for around 7,000, so we'll hear more on that hopefully in the next few days. But, you know, like Pat said, if you get a side like Burnley, I actually think it's not bad going away, though, because I think the size of the ground isn't going to be too different from Sincilbank. If you would have gone to the Emirates or Old Trafford, massive grounds, I mean, that would really test the fitness of these Lincoln players. Whereas Turf Moor, it'll be like playing at Sincilbank, I think.
Okay. You were at the Brighton game. Tell us a little bit about the game.
About the Brighton game, well, obviously Glenn Murray started a bit physical and got in the Lincoln players' faces a bit, but he had a few chances. Obviously, Farman had to tip it around the post a few times. And the goal really came against a run of play. It was just a bit bizarre one to concede for Lincoln, but after that it was Lincoln in control for the most of the rest of the game, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think what we were quite disappointed with in the press conference after the game was the fact that Chris Hughton said that Lincoln were direct and they were the ones who maybe didn't deserve the result. I mean, like you just said, Glenn Murray, I mean, their first goal was a long ball to Glenn Murray, who then knocked it onto their goal. I mean, you know, Lincoln's goals were from their pressing and from individual mistakes that they forced.
They definitely deserved the goals. I know Chris Hughton, obviously Dan mentioned that Chris Hughton said in his post-match press conference that maybe Lincoln didn't deserve the win, but obviously they pressed them into these mistakes, they pressed them into getting the goals. So
I mean, they were still pressing in the 85th minute when they scored that third goal, and they had only played a few days before, of course, against Barrow, a full team as well. You know, I know Brighton played on the Tuesday, but they changed their whole team, so a lot of those players who came in against Lincoln would have been fresh.
What was the atmosphere like? Sincilbank was packed to the rafters. What was it like to be there at the game?
It was surreal, actually. Well, we obviously did a Facebook Live before, and it was a bit surreal to see it. And
I mean, we walked around the ground, didn't we? And it was, you know, lines coming out all around the stadium, and then we were just near the tunnel as the players came out. We weren't actually in our seats yet. We were just standing at the players' tunnel, and we saw this mosaic of "We are Imps."
The mosaic that was probably the crowning moment of that day, to be fair.
Okay. Well, the Imps returned to league action on Tuesday with a 1-0 win away against Solihull Moors. Our reporter James Williams was at the match and I caught up with him earlier to get his thoughts on Lincoln's performance. So James, it's been a busy week for Lincoln City, a lot of media attention surrounding especially the FA Cup. It was a big win for them on Tuesday away at Solihull.
Yeah, it definitely was, especially after the Brighton match in the FA Cup on Saturday. I think there was actually a lot of pressure on Danny Cowley's side to win the league match, and he said that was more important and it was the most important match of the week. And that showed. First half, they weren't great. They were a bit flat, and it was a bit like the performance against Barrow in the league the week before when they lost 3-0, and that was a poor performance, and Cowley admitted that. But whatever he said at half-time, they came out a different team in that second half, got the goal for Jack Muldoon, probably should have won by more, but did a professional job.
And we're going to touch on the Theo Robinson saga a little bit later on, but tell us a little bit about how that all unfolded.
Well, it was a bit odd. Danny Cowley said that he got a phone call at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon saying Southend were interested, and Robinson was set to start that match on Tuesday evening against Solihull. So then, obviously, Cowley had a decision to make. I think he just said he wasn't going to deal really with the Robinson situation until after the match. His focus was on the match. So he omitted Robinson from the team. In came Jack Muldoon, who eventually scored the winning goal and played very well, by the way. Robinson watched from the stands, telling everyone he had a knee injury, which obviously wasn't strictly true. And then after the match, I don't know if you've seen the videos on the internet of how it all unfolded on the side of the pitch after the match when Danny Cowley was trying to do a deal with Robinson and Southend and Robinson's agent, and everyone was like, it was all going on. But in the end, obviously, he left. But City's focus, the team's focus and Cowley's focus were firmly on the match beforehand, and that showed. That got the 3 points, and that's exactly what they needed to go 4 points clear at the top of the National League.
Okay, guys, so your thoughts on the departure of Theo Robinson?
I think we all expected him to leave at some point. I mean, of course, most Lincoln City players will be moved on at some point, but I think we always knew that he was a temporary solution for Lincoln once Johnny Margetts left in the summer transfer window to Scunthorpe. I think Theo was quite good, Theo Robinson. He was a bit disappointing in the National League. I think it's 1 goal in 14 games. I mean, that's not really the kind of form you want when you're chasing for the title and your star striker has 1 goal. Of course, in the FA Cup, absolutely fantastic. I mean, you know, we saw him against Brighton. The thing is, despite scoring, his actual play still wasn't great.
No, he made a few sloppy mistakes, and just his passing and his distribution, maybe to a few balls up to Matt Reed, and maybe a bit of his running off the ball wasn't up to scratch in that game. And up until his goal, really. And he obviously won a penalty, and maybe on another day it might not have been given.
I mean, his contribution to the Brighton game was fantastic. He won the penalty, injured the keeper, and scored a goal. So fair play. But his touch was off, especially against Barrow as well. You know, I know that was on TV, and his touch was off in that game. His finishing was off. He couldn't hold the ball up. And I think Danny Cowley wants a lot more from his star striker, and I think in the coming days, I think they will sign another striker very soon. I mean, it's not really urgently needed because they have Welling in their FA Trophy on Saturday, but they definitely will get a striker before Woking next weekend, or not this weekend, but the weekend after. And I think he'll want a lot more skills and attributes.
I was actually quite disappointed with the Theo Robinson departure, actually, because in his post-match after Brighton, he said that he did want a contract.
We had differing opinions on that, didn't we?
We did have differing opinions on that, and I thought it was a bit disappointing. He obviously did say, I'll take it game by game, so maybe the writing was on the wall at that point, but I still held out hope that Robinson would stay with the club. But
I took the complete opposite view, because after Theo had said, you know, well, we're taking it game by game, Cowley then came in after and said, well, we've offered him a contract. And, you know, he didn't seem optimistic. However, I have to say, at the press conference before Solihull on Monday, Cowley said that they were very close to actually agreeing a new contract. And I think that was the point where, to be off the next day to Southend, I mean, it shows you how kind of late Southend left it to go for Theo.
I'm sure Lincoln wish him all the best at Southend. Here's the thoughts of Imps manager Danny Cowley on Robinson's departure.
Obviously, we were disappointed to lose Theo. Theo was really good for us. He was a great lad and a good player for us. And you can see that by our win percentage when he plays. So he's going to be a loss. Like I've already said, we understand the circumstances and we wish Theo well. But it's important that we find the right player to replace him so that we can continue the success that we've had.
The transfer activity at Sincil Bank hasn't stopped, however. Gillingham midfielder Billy Knott has signed on loan until the end of the season. Cowley says he's an exciting player.
Billy can be whatever he wants to be. He's a fantastically talented footballer, left-footed, which gives us a nice balance in the squad. Can play across midfield. Really talented boy. We're very lucky to have him. Obviously, Billy and I go way back. We've known him since he's been a young kid. and he can be whatever he wants to be. And I think the exciting thing for us is that probably Bill, as yet, hasn't quite reached what he's capable of doing. But the fact that he trusts us to come in here, and he's had lots and lots of offers during the window to go elsewhere and to go on permanent moves elsewhere, but he feels that this is the best place for him at this time, and obviously from our point of view we're obviously really pleased about that. I think the fans will love him.
City travelled to Welling in the last 16 of the FA Trophy on Saturday. Danny Cowley is expected to make changes to his side, but says he's still taking the match very seriously.
We'll look to move it around. I want to make it clear what we're going to do, because I think that's fair to the supporters. We will move it around this weekend, obviously having done what we've done in the FA Cup and the additional games that has created in the schedule. It's the right thing to do for the team. To me, it's our most important game of the season because it's our next one, and that's the fact, and we want to do well in the trophy. So we're not devaluing the competition at all. We're just trying to do the very best with our squad, because we need to be fit and fresh for the business end. We've got a lot of faith in the boys that will play on Saturday. It's actually really good fun for Nicky and I, because you get to build a team in a short space of time. So we did a good job. The team did a good job going into the Gateshead game, and we were able to move the squad around quite significantly and obviously beat a top 8 team in our division, which was great. And we'll look to do the same against Welling. We're respectful of Welling. We know Welling well. We watched them Tuesday. So just because we're moving the squad around, it doesn't mean that we're taking the game any less important.
Well, Cowley said that he's going to make a lot of changes to the side, but he still wants to take the competition seriously. What are your thoughts on how the game's going to pan out?
Well, I think Lincoln have quite a few players that could go into that side and still be quite strong against Welling. You have the likes of Elliot Whitehouse, who hasn't been playing too much. You have other players that unfortunately are cup tied, I think, like Taylor Miles, like Callum Howe. But I think it'll actually be quite interesting, because going forward, I mean, he'll want to give Matt Reed a rest, but unless they get a striker, and after Theo Robinson's departure, it'll be interesting to see who he puts up with Jack Muldoon up front if he does choose to give Matt Reed a rest.
I feel like obviously Jack Muldoon had a good game against them, Solihull by all accounts. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays in the game. But I still think that obviously Danny Cowley does need to maybe go into get a lone player, maybe get a striker up there, since obviously Theo Robinson has departed the club. So I think they need that. I think they need a striker with pace, because obviously Matt Reed, you can ping a ball up to him, but you need someone to ping it down to, and you need someone to ping the balls into him. So I think that.
I mean, despite him wanting to play a weak inside on Saturday, I think he'll actually be forced to still play a few first teamers that he would actually love to give a rest to, because a lot of them are cup tied, or with Theo's departure, I think it does leave a massive gap in that squad.
Cowley also said that he thinks Lincoln will be underdogs because of the changes that the side are going to make. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, I think I think at the end of the day, they're still the top of the National League. They've still beat Oldham, Brighton, and the team Ipswich. Excuse me. However, with the weekend side, I just think with the momentum they have at the moment, they have to be favourites. We have our friend Peter Hayward that would favour Lincoln over any team, and I think he'll be very right to favour them this weekend, because the mood around the team is fantastic. You walk around the press conference, you hear from the players in the press conferences as well. The mood around the camp's fantastic, and I think that'll carry them on through Saturday.
I think Danny Cowley wanted to maybe take a bit of pressure off his team, really, by saying, obviously, it's not an excuse, obviously, if they lose, but obviously with the amount of changes that they're making, maybe they're trying to, make an excuse or something.
The fact is, they can still win the treble, and it's on. The domestic treble's still on. They could get a place in the Europa League if they win, or even finish in the final of the FA Cup. And I say, they can achieve anything.
Absolutely. In contrast, Lincoln United are still without a win in 2017. The Whites have lost their last 7 games in all competitions and now find themselves just 2 places above the relegation zone, in 18th position in the Evo Stick First Division South. So guys, we haven't seen a lot of Lincoln United in recent weeks. What do you think has gone wrong?
It's quite almost weird actually seeing so many disappointing results for Lincoln United, especially at Ashby Avenue. I said at the beginning of the season, when they had all these games in hand, that, well, when do you start taking their league position seriously? Because they've almost been in that bottom 6, bottom 7 the whole season. And at what point do you take it seriously and say they're actually in trouble? I think now we're in February. You have to say they are in a bit of trouble. They should have enough quality in that squad after signing Connor Robinson, getting Jack McGovern back. They should have enough quality to obviously stay up. But I think it's quite disappointing after reaching a playoff last season, losing to Shore Lane in the end, and then being so low. I think, of course, tiredness comes into all the domestic competitions they were involved with this year.
Talking about reasons for their dip in form, do you think tiredness in terms of making up for their games in hand, do you think that could be a big reason for why their form has dropped?
I think it must be with Lincoln United. Obviously, they're not full-time players, so they're part-time. They have to work and then come and play as well. So I think that would be tiredness, but you should be able to play that amount of games in that kind of... I don't think you can blame tiredness solely for it.
I think the mood around the camp, it's like the opposite to Lincoln City. The mood around the camp is pretty, down, I imagine, because they've not won a lot of games recently. You compare that to Lincoln City and you see kind of the effect it has on the whole squad. I think the opposite to Lincoln United, they're just on a downward slump, and it's up to Sam Wilkinson to change that.
Do you think it also could be to do with the fact that the new signings haven't had the desired impact?
Well, it's difficult because, Connor Robinson left Lincoln, and that happened under Chris Moyes, and it was deemed as he wasn't good enough. So if he's not performing at Lincoln United, then it's difficult to see where he's going to go after his stint at United doesn't work out. I think for squad members, it's a bit odd maybe for Jack McGovern to have left and then come back, and then you're kind of just accepting him after he left for, I think it was Gainsborough, Trinity. So it's a weird dynamic, I think, for the squad. What do you think?
It is always difficult when obviously players are departing and.
But then he comes back.
Arriving. It is a bit of a weird. Maybe that's unsettled the side. Maybe, and it might not be fatigue. It might have been a bit of unsettling. Sort of if you leave the club and then come back, you just don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
There,
yeah.
really.
Are they too good to go down though?
Like I've alluded to, you'd think so with players like Jack McGovern, Jordan Hempstall's form at the beginning of the season. Like I said, Connor Robinson, when I watched him at Lincoln City, there was definitely talent there. So I think going forward, definitely. I think the problem they really have is in defence. They went on a really good run before Christmas in terms of not conceding goals. But then January, they were conceding way, way too many goals. And, if they can't address that, then they could very well find themselves down there.
Yeah, well, let's hope they can refine their form sometime soon. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks to Dan and Patrick for joining me. Can Lincoln City continue their success story? We'll be back again next week to find out. Goodbye.